Princes of Darkness is a mod that I've often said is basically like a game unto itself. There are a variety of different playstyles that you can pursue, be that as a vampire, a werewolf, a demon, an inquisitor, and many other things. But I've never made a video talking about starts I'd recommend, so I'd like to rectify that today with 10 different starts, 10 different areas of the mod that you can play and hopefully feel comfortable with, and just give you a wide variety of things that you can pursue and do within the mod so that you can feel comfortable and knowledgeable enough about the mod to try to do maybe some of the harder stuff or more unique stuff that the mod has to offer. So let's start off here with Panua, the Malkavian mother of Alexander the Great. She occupies a place on something known as the Red List, which means that the Camarilla, or it's like an elite sect of vampires, wants to see her dead. That's like some lore stuff. But basically, this is the mother of Alexander the Great. That's the big deal, right? And when Alexander was near death, Panua wished to embrace him, right? To bring him into the vampire fold. But Sybil, a fourth generation elder who Panua worshipped and who was the one who made Panua into a vampire, forbid her from turning Alexander into a kindred, thus ending his empire and throwing her into a millennia-long grief. Today she walks a dark path of madness known as the Black Spiral, which is a mechanic in game. She searches for Alexander's lost soul, and in game there is, I believe, a roughly 1% chance of uncovering something. But whether or not this search is legitimate or the raving madness of a mother's grief remains to be seen. This is a really cool start. I think it's interesting that you can play as Alexander's mother in pursuit endlessly, basically, of finding her son. Presumably she's been walking this path for millennia, and the idea of maybe finding something you're not prepared for, I think is really cool. It's a really fun idea, and I think this is a great one to give a shot. So this next one's going to be a weird one because he's probably the smallest ruler on this list. This is Count Hagbard, the last Varangian, and I picked him. I mean, it's probably fairly obvious. The dude looks cool as hell. Look at him, he's absolutely dope. But an interesting thing about him is that because he was a Varangian guard, he actually gets a decision to restore Rome, like a vampiric Rome, which is really cool. So you could try to pursue that. You're kind of small, obviously, as just a count, so you're going to have a little bit of a harder time. This is probably what I would consider like a hard vampire start. Maybe not the one you should start your run with. I do have one later on in this list that I would recommend that for, but honestly, if you want to play a cool vampire Viking, I mean, this dude, look at him. I mean, look at him. I don't have any other reason that you should play as him other than that he looks awesome, okay? That was the reason. At number 3, we have one of my favorite characters in the mod. This is Leopold Von Manau, the first Inquisitor and founder of the Society of Leopold, a highly trained and fanatical sect of the Inquisition dedicated to the pursuit and eradication supernatural beings. He has a pretty elaborate questline involving not only his succession as head of House of Manau, but also the combined forces of the Inquisition itself with various other groups like the Red Order or Sisters of St. John, with each requiring various prerequisites to strengthen their positions and sort of solidify the bond between you or them and the Shadow Inquisition, basically. There's a bunch of them, like the names for them on screen here, you can see. Inquisitors, I think, have a really cool mechanic which involves hunting vampires down to their lair. I've made a video on this before, and if you're interested, I would go check that out. It's very, very cool. And you do battle with the vampires basically in small hand-selected elite groups, which is awesome. It's a very cool and honestly one of the most refreshing ways, I think, to play CK3. This is one of my favorite characters in the mod. I really like doing this. I think it's a lot of fun. I think, like I've said, Princes of Darkness is a mod that is very easy to feel like you're playing a different game. So I recommend Leopold, not only because he's not a vampire, so you're getting something vampire adjacent, or not a vampire, I should say, but also just because it's challenging to be an Inquisitor, and he just has a lot of flavor that you can do, and I think that, if anything, the more flavor, the better, right? For this next one, we have undoubtedly one of the coolest characters in the mod, and this is Horus the Avenger, the Egyptian god and son of the slain god Osiris. He has a questline where he seeks to finally eliminate the followers of Set, Set being one that he, got after he slew his dad, kind of what you do. But since Horus is a mummy, and a powerful one at that, this is a good start for players to learn how to play this type of supernatural being, since a lot of the other mummies have a bit of a harder start, which is pretty common in Princes of Darkness anyway. Most of the starts are hard. But this is especially true for mummies because outside of a couple characters like Horus, who can unlock something known as the Spell of Life to make new mummies, they're very limited into what they can do to make more. And so, unlike vampires, they actually have mortal children, but they have access to a lot of other cool, unique magic spells and other interesting stuff if you play as them. I recommend reading through the game's tutorial when you load up the game for the first time. There's a bunch of things that'll pop up asking you if you want some more clarification or context. I recommend reading through that, as it'll help you play and understand this role better. But Horus is cool. I mean, who wouldn't want to be an Egyptian god? It's so awesome. Plus he looks freaking sick. I mean, again, I'm picking this one because it looks cool. All right, so number 5 here, we got what I consider to be probably the tutorial vampire character of the mod, and this is Mithis. He starts off with fantastic stats. As you can see, he controls most of England, so a really strong position as a ruler, and he has a really cool event chain, which revolves around his lover and also sort of consolidating his control of England as a whole. Now, Mithis, for those of you who don't know, or for those of you who are curious about his name, this is the very same Mithis of the ancient Persian and Greco-Roman cult. While there is no head of faith, I would imagine that Mithis would be a good candidate for it, and if you're curious as to what that cult is, the cult of Mithis is basically a cult of like warriors, to put it simply, like a secret fraternity of warriors, which makes sense because Mithis has pretty insane prowess. It's like 55, I think, at the start of the game, and it can go up even higher. This is a very good start for learning how to play a vampire because he's really strong. You don't have to worry about enemies too much. You're pretty much going to be steamrolling everything. So if you just want to kind of like ease into the mod, chill, play the game, like learn the mechanics, this is a great character for that because, again, you're immortal. You're not, I mean, it's not like you're going to die and have to deal with succession. You're just going to be chilling. This is probably the best start for a new player to learn how to be a vampire. It's great. For the next one, we have Anna Comini, the daughter of Byzantine Emperor Alexios I. Now, Anna's main goal, as is probably obvious, is to retake Constantinople, which she starts off with a claim to. She technically did try to take the throne of Constantinople in real life by plotting to usurp her brother, John II, but this was foiled by her husband at the time, and she was later banished, whereafter she wrote the Alexiad. A lot of people will recommend either her or Helena of Troy as like a good character to play with like a lot of intrigue potential. I think Helena gets a lot more love considering who she is from the community, and since next month we get the Roads to Power Byzantine DLC, I decided I would rather go with Anna because I think she'll get a lot more flavor in the months to come. She's a cool historical character. It sets you up with a really solid goal of what you've got to do. You're going to take Constantinople, and then you can basically, if you want to, try to rebuild the Byzantine Empire, which could be really sick. And to basically just get filthy rich and powerful. I wouldn't consider this one very difficult either. I think Mithras and this one would probably be fairly easy. This one won't be as easy as Mithras, but if you want to have a good time, I recommend Anna. So keeping it with the girlies, I'm going to go a bit out of left field here for any of these sapphic appreciators out there. This is Addisa, a gangrel vampire who has a unique in-game feature of only being able to embrace women. She's supposedly not only the daughter of the Norse goddess Freya, but is also a Valkyrie, who founded the all-female Ahrimanis bloodline. I think I'm saying that right. I choose this one for anybody who might want to roleplay as an army of scary, powerful women, which is also very hot. Sweeping over the land with the might of the bestial gangrel. They're like the most, I don't know, werewolf-like vampires, I guess you would call them. I would say this one's a lot like The Last Varangian, in that you're going to kind of be choosing your own adventure with this one. You start off kind of similarly to as like a count or like a duchess. I can't remember which one. It looks maybe like she's got a little more land. But either way, this one could be really cool. I think the idea of having to only select women too kind of makes this one a little more unique. This is also the last vampire on the list, so the next three will be something completely different. Like I've said, we've done a lot of vampires and we did a mummy, so I think it's pretty apparent I should switch it up for this one. I'm going to also double up and probably make this one of the harder starts on the list with Sister Worm. She's a black spiral dancer who has the added option of being a disciple of and trying to appease Baba Yaga to become an abomination, which is a very rare vampire werewolf hybrid, which is really cool. I think it's a solid end goal for your run, but you start in a pretty precarious position as you are just like a count. Again, I guess I was wrong earlier when I said that it was going to be the smallest ruler because there's been like 3 now that are counts, so there you go, I was wrong. You do have a cool outcome if you manage to survive, but again, you start off pretty weak. Werewolves are not as strong as vampires, and they are also mortal if I'm remembering correctly. I don't know if I recommend doing this one as your first ever werewolf run, but if you read through the tutorial, you should be okay. I just think she's cool and that she can become an abomination through just like a decision. I think other characters might already start off as that, but I think having a goal is always fun. Keeping in line with that last one, we're going to put a demon on the list now, and I'm going to go with the evil demon goddess of pride, Lamashtu, a Mesopotamian deity who menaced women during childbirth, kidnapped, and ate children. Fun. But she doesn't do that anymore, so she's kind of chill now. But she's the reason historically for the Greco-Persian Wars, literally because she felt like it. She also has a pretty cool event chain around recovering Acre in Anatolia, and she can also restore Babylon, which is really cool. Demons, however, start kind of weak, although she's powerful. Like, it's hard to say. They're not super strong at the beginning, but over time you acquire more powers, and you sort of end up snowballing. Again, I'm going to recommend reading through the introductory tutorial just to give you an idea of what you're in for, but mostly just because, this one's going to be a lot less straightforward. She also looks kind of crazy, doesn't she? Look at her, scary. But this one's going to be a little less straightforward than like a vampire or a werewolf or even an inquisitor, just because demons play a little differently, and you're gonna want to read through that stuff. And if you have any questions, again, I always recommend going on Discords for these things. The Princes of Darkness Discord is great, and they should be able to help you out. And finally, up here at the very, very top of the map, in between what you would call Norway and Finland, we have a fae, and I could think of no better choice than the she Ilmarinen, one of the greatest smiths and craftsmen of his kind, who during the Shattering, not Elden Ring, fled north here with his wife Knocker and Boggan servants, and using a handmade golem of himself sends magical and often dangerous toys to children all over the world, which he transports in a large sled. Yes, you heard that right. Ilmarinen is none other than Santa, and indeed you get a unique decision to become Santa in the mod, so of course that was who I had to pick as a fae. I have not played this run yet, but I thought that it was too funny that you could do this, and I think it's absolutely amazing that he's in the mod at all, and I recommend you give him a try and let me know how it goes. And that is going to be it for me. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I've been meaning to put a video together for Princes of Darkness for a while, and I'm glad that I've finally done so. And if you have any suggestions, as always, if you're new to my channel, please drop them down in the comments so that people can read them and enjoy the mod a little bit more. But again, as always, I'm Soul. This has been a Princes of Darkness video, and I will happily see you in the next one. And hopefully I'll be playing some of these very soon.